Hi, I'm Gillian Love. I'm a GP from Halesowen and I'm one of the GP chairs for the steering group for Dudley's MCP development. What working with Dudley Vanguard for the new care models, engaging with my primary care colleagues, in particular with my GP colleagues, has taught me is that everybody's ready for change. There's a lack of sustainability out there that is felt both in the older and the younger GP groups. And we need to make some changes in order for this to improve and for primary care to continue and be able to support our 300,000 population in Dudley. It's been a fascinating process, but it's also been exhausting. There's a real culture for change out there, but it's about keeping our GP colleagues as individual business owners focused on the need for change and making it less threatening to them, to make their workplace a better place, to make it a happier place to be. They spend a lot of hours there and they do some very intense work with their patients, and it's about making it possible to continue this work for them beyond the age of 57, where a lot of them are starting to retire, and wanting them to stay in their roles in primary care. Development of the MCP has taught me that a lot of my colleagues out there are working really hard and there's some really good practice going on. What it's also taught me though is that we're working in small pockets of innovation and that we need to be able to share that innovation. And working as part of the steering group for the MCP has taught me that this is actually possible and that most of our colleagues are really willing to share that knowledge, and that there's a real thirst for developing better practice that allows greater sustainability by using different work profiles within the practices. Without being part of this process, I would not have been aware of what else was going on in the borough of Dudley in primary care. What it's made me realise is that most of my colleagues are really keen to produce really good primary care for their patients, and that they really are crying out for help to do this in a way that's more sustainable, with easier pathways to follow, that don't waste time or money or staff in order to do so. Working on developing the MCP as part of the steering group has made me much more aware of my other GP colleagues out in the borough and how much innovation is going on and how keen my colleagues are to make things better for patients. There's some fantastic stuff going on using different team working with healthcare assistants, advanced nurse practitioners, paramedics, physicians assistants, etc. across Dudley, and without the development of the MCP I wouldn't have been aware of what else was going out there, nor would I have been aware of their thirst for the ability to change and their willingness to share their experiences and knowledge with their colleagues. Primary care has been very full of small businesses working in silos, and the development of the MCP and working with the new GP care model has enabled this information to be shared on a much wider scale, allowing for improved skill mixes across primary care and better care therefore for patients. What working with the MCP development has taught me is that we should think very carefully about why we are trying to make changes before we start making those changes, that the culture needs to be correct and that you need to have the right amount of energy within the organisation to make change happen. We've been very fortunate in Dudley in that the enthusiasm for change is immense, but it's been a very lengthy process with a lot of red tape tangled up in it, and it's really difficult to maintain the energy for long periods of time. And that's why you need to keep focusing on the why rather than the how or the when. Otherwise you get completely lost in the process and it'd be impossible to sustain the energy to make the changes as a result of that. I'd recommend that before engaging in this type of process that you make sure that all the parties concerned are working towards a common cause, and then needs to be a huge amount of trust between the organisations involved. We've been very fortunate in Dudley in that primary care has given the GPs on the steering group their trust to make things better for them, their teams and their patients. and that our partners in the process have also provided us with that trust. And I can only reiterate again that the culture and the reasons for why you need to make the change need to be kept hold of. I'd also recommend that communication between all parties is maintained at all times. There have been instances where messages out to primary care have gone quiet, and they've been under the impression that things have stalled and that the process is coming to an end. In actual fact, that hasn't been the case. It's just that we've been bogged down with red tape at the time, and it's reminded us that communication out to the teams of people in the community, the primary care organisations and our partners, is essential.